Welcome back to the C tutorial series. I'm so glad you're here. Today, we will learn how to have user input in C, so let's get started. I created a file called userinput.c where we're going to ask the user to enter some values. And like every program, I have a main function. And inside the main function, I'm going to declare an integer num, and then I'm going to ask the user to enter the number. So there's a function called scanf that scans for user input. And I'm going to do %d because if you remember from the previous tutorial, %d is for integers. Then I'm going to assign it the num. And to do an assignment, we do the ampersand, and then this integer is called num. And then on the next line, I want to print whatever we entered. So I'll say you entered, and then the number, which is an integer %d, and then num. So now when I open the terminal and run this and input 3, it's going to say you entered 3. But before this, I want to have it prompt me to enter a number. So I'll say enter a number. And now when I run it, it prompts me down here to enter a number, so I'll say 3 again, and it says you entered 3. We can also do a similar thing for decimals, characters, as well as strings. So I'm going to declare 3 more variables here, and I'm going to have one variable be a float, which I call decimal, another one character, which I just call character, and then I'll create a string with up to 15 characters for the name. I'll then prompt the user to enter a decimal, and a decimal is f for a float number. And then on the next line I'll say you entered %d for the integer and %f for the float, and I'm going to add the argument decimal at the end, and then I'll create a new prompt for a character, and it scans for a character and will scan for the character with %c. Then let's prompt the user to enter their name, and with a name being an array of characters or a string, we do %s and then comma name. And what's unique about name is that there's no ampersand before it because it's an array of characters. We'll learn more about why this is in a later video, but we don't have to worry about this right now. And finally, I'm gonna say you entered whatever character you entered, and your name is whatever you entered. Now let's run this to see if the code works. I'll enter a number 5, then a decimal 3.2, and it says you entered 5 and 3.2. However, on this line you see an error because it says enter a character and enter your name. So an issue why this is happening is that there may be a trailing space on a line. So before each scanf argument, put a space, so this will eliminate any possible white space. Now let's save this and run it again, and I'll enter 5 and 3.2 like before, but this time it outputs correctly. So I'll enter a character A, and then I'll enter my name, which is Jonathan. And then it says you entered A, and your name is Jonathan. And this works correctly for user input. Now let's create a program where the user enters multiple numbers on the same line, and where it outputs the sum of the two numbers. In order to do this, I created a file called add2numbers.c and created a main function, and at the top I put #include stdio.h. I'm going to create two numbers that are doubles, and I'll just call them num1 and num2. Then I'll ask the user to input two numbers to add, and this time I'm scanning for two doubles. So I'll do the %lf for a double, then a space, then %lf again for another double. And I'm assigning these two values to num1 and num2. Then I'm going to create another variable, which will be the sum, and all it does is adds num1 and num2 together. Finally, I want to print the output to the user, and I'll do %g. So what %g does is rounds it, because we have a double which could take in a decimal number or an integer. So if the user inputs 1 and 2, I don't want it to have trailing decimals, so %g removes the trailing decimals. So I'll just say %g plus %g equals %g. And then I'll input num1, num2, and sum. Now I'll run this and it will work, and it says enter two numbers to add, and I'll just say 10 and 0.5, and it says 10 plus 0.5 equals 10.5, and I can run this again with two integers or two decimal numbers, and it will work just as well. And this is how to scan for user input in C. Next, we will introduce comments in our C programs. Make sure to follow along with this video series by subscribing and hitting the notification bell, or by clicking on the next video so that you can expand your knowledge about C. Thank you so much, and as always, I can't wait to see you next time.